Hi, this is Letty. I'd like to just demonstrate importing Excel into Access. It's super easy and it sure saves a lot of time trying to figure out how to get it in there. I'm looking at my information first in Excel just to make sure it looks pretty tidy. Some formatting's kind of weird with my borders, but I can see that my data is in good shape. I've got a naturally occurring primary key. And let me just look at how many records this is. I'm looking at 742 records of data in this particular sheet. And on this one, well, roughly 23 records. Okay, so I'm going to close my database. That's saved on the desktop, and I won't save it. Now in Excel, I'm going to start a new database. I'll call this import, but obviously you would call it something better than that. And I will close the default table it wants to start you off in. I'll now go to the External Data tab and choose to bring in data from Excel. Here's where I can browse to that source. It's on my desktop, and this is the one. And I will say OK. Now I can see that I had two sheets in my data, and I'll just bring in this sheet. And it's showing me the data underneath in a preview. I'll choose Next. It's asking me if the first row was actually comprised of column headings, and it is. So I'm going to leave the check mark in there. On this stage of the wizard, you could choose to modify some things, but I can tell you that I always skip this stage and prefer to modify the table settings when I actually get into Access. So I'll choose Next. This is quite important. It's not a make or break situation, but since there is a naturally occurring primary key, I'm going to say please let me choose my own, and I'm going to identify that it's the Social Security number that is a good one. I'll choose Next. At this point I could name my table, but I'll just leave it that and choose Finish. Now it's fussing at me. It's saying there is a record in there that has a null value and so cannot be used for a primary key. So I'll say OK, and I'll say close. Now it actually did bring in the data anyway, and we can see that in here. If I were to go to Design View and try to set Social Security as a primary key and save it, it will fuss at me again. I won't be able to do it. So I will remove that as the primary key. Look at my data one more time, and since there seems to be a null value in this column, I'll ask to see only blanks. I'll filter for only blanks. This doesn't look like it's a record, but it's being treated as if it is. So I'm going to just select it, delete, and say yes. And when I go back to Design View now, I should be able to make the Social Security number our primary key. And indeed, if I save it now, it's working just fine. Now, there are many things that you might want to change in here. For instance, Social Security is set to number, and that should definitely be short text so that we can put an input mask on. And I'll just demo that really quickly. Here's the Social Security input mask, and I will save it with the symbols. So as I say, after you get your data in, you can manipulate what kinds of data type you want those fields to be. You can create your primary key. Make sure things are looking good in here. There are many field settings that you'll want to tweak once the data comes in, but it's that's basically how to bring in data from Excel.